All right, so I'll put the chat box up here. So just in case if anybody needs to say something. I don't know if I mentioned this last class because all my classes are starting to blend together in my head already. So you can text other people in the chat. So if I want to say something to Jesse, I can say, hi, and it just goes from me to the other person. The reason I do that is so that you can talk back and I am. Right, so I'll put the chat box up here. Oh no! Just in case anybody needs to say something. I don't know if I mentioned this last time. Shut up. Okay. I thought that was Travis telling me to record. That was funny. Okay. Hi, sir. Okay. So what you can, the reason why I have the chat box set so you can talk to other people in class, I want to try to make this as close to a real class as possible. And so if someone's sitting next to you and you whisper to them things back and forth during class that enhance your experience during class, that's fine. I don't mind. And I'd rather you guys start trying to talk to each other during class so that you can just kind of build connections and work on trying to get so you can work with other people to get stuff done in this class. So for today, okay, let me put this little over here, share screen. All right. So I have a question for you. How do you measure learning for today?
You measure how much knowledge you know.
All right, that's a good cognitive answer. I'm going to put up this whiteboard here. All right. Oh, so it's not okay. So I'm going to you are sharing. I'm going to share the whole screen here. Second, so I can just share the whole screen, so I can go back and forth. All right. Okay. So if I ask you, how do you measure learning? All right. I'm going to put up, hopefully. I just took a bunch of photos this morning, and I want to see if you're learning. Okay, hold on. Okay, photos. Okay, so I am going to just open my Google Photos here really quickly, and let's see if they're there. I don't want to log into Canvas. Okay. Yes, they're there. Okay, so what is that?
A smooth.
A smooth. Okay, you weren't for you weren't here last class. What that is the way it's spelled is like for it. S-M-E-U-S-E. That is a smooth. You can tell it's a smooth. Let me close that. You can tell it's a smooth because if you notice around the edges of it, okay, this is in the little grating under our house, there is like a grease stain. Okay, so if I have the mouse over here, you can see this little grease stain. The mouse won't show what it is around there. And that little grease stain is rats coming in and out. So what I did, because I am Elmer Fudd, I put this pipe, this PVC pipe fits nicely in the hole. This smooth, I used a piece of wire to kind of block off the hole the best I can. Okay. This one, I put a piece of plywood up where the rats were kind of chewing through the bottom of this plywood to try to get and hang out by the water heater. How do I know that this is not just a piece of rotting wood, but this is actually a smooth?
Well, like you said, there's probably some grease. And also I will notice like some poop in there.
There you go. You got it. There's a nugget. There's a piece of rat poop, and you can see the grease. See the dark on the right underneath where the where the piece of plywood wasn't. That crack is really small. Boy, when you zoom in, I really need to fix. We're talking a little teeny space. But the rats are very flexible and they can get through very tiny spaces. This was another one where this little hole was in the screen, so I wired it closed. How do I know it is no longer a smoose?
Because it's not open?
The fact that the rats haven't chewed through the wire yet and haven't gone through it. Will they chew through the wire eventually? Yeah, we'll talk about why in a few minutes here. Okay, I just read that one. And then this one. How do I know that this is a smoose? What does it look like that there is along the edge of this?
Different color.
Yeah, you can see how the dirt's a different color. And so if you look at it carefully, you can see there's like a little foot traffic. This is probably more skunk and possum than rat. Rats don't really crawl through gaps in fence. They just climb over stuff. But at the same time, it's a different kind of smooth. And so this is what I have set up on the roof of that. This is our hot water heater where it sits outside. And those are, come on, people, interact, do something, say something.
They're rat traps.
They're rat traps. They even have a picture of a rat on them, which I don't think is very sneaky because the rat's going to look at that and say, hey, it says rat trap on it. I'm not going to get stuck. How come they're empty? There's no dead rats in there this morning.
Because smart.
The rats are smarter than I am. So what we want to talk about, what is learning? Why do I say the rats are smarter than I am? Have they accumulated more knowledge than I have?
They just adapted to like I don't know, shoot.
So that's actually what I was looking for someone to say. Learning is adaptation. It's not knowledge. Learning is adaptation. So this whole class, we're going to spend talking about how you adapt. Well, we're going to also talk about animals and all sorts of other things, but it's all about adaptation. So the basic underlying principle for this entire class, I'm going to guess my battery is going to start wearing out because when the pen starts becoming weird, that means my battery is going to die in the pen. And it's like some quadruple A battery that's really hard to find. Anyway, so what is adaptation? So can someone tell me what they're just normal, when you hear the word adaptation, what that means?
You adjust the situations.
So is adjustment the same as adaptation? Like Allison just adjusted herself in the chair. I'm going to adjust myself in a second because I did squats today and my right leg is very sore for some reason. Just my right one. I don't know why. I'm old. So I put my foot up on the couch. I made an adjustment. Is that learning?
No. That is adjusting. That's adjusting yourself.
Right, but is it learning? Okay, so Madeline, how are you? So when we start thinking about this, is that adaptation occurs, and now let me go back to my photos again, because this is where I really wanted to, this is what I was really focusing on this morning, not my rats. Albums. All right. I love this picture. She's freshly groomed and pooping. Nobody? To me, it's great. All right. So, oh, that's just a peanut butter sandwich on the ski slopes. Best thing ever. I miss skiing. We canceled the season halfway through because of the COVID. Grr. All right. So what I really want you to look at is these trees. Okay? Look at these trees. Do they learn?
They adapted to their climate over time so that they're able to survive in like colder weather.
Well, yeah, so these trees have evolved to adapt to very different situations. They're just completely amazing. I have a lot of pictures of trees. Here's another batch. This is a different kind of plant. This is over by a river. The trees that we were looking at just a minute ago are up on this mountain way up here. Up in the, I'm using the wrong mouse, sorry. I know I need a mouse for this little computer so I can point to things. But up in the mountains in the distance by the clouds is where those other trees were. How come we don't see the same trees down by this creek?
The plants like by the creek are better suited for that environment as opposed to the other trees.
Okay, so where these plants are is where they are best suited to grow. So they have adapted to their environment. These plants here don't grow up on the mountain. The trees up on the mountain don't grow down here. This is actually right by Mono Lake. This is a part of a creek called Rush Creek. There's some very, very big fish in Rush Creek, and it's a really fun place to hike and fish and almost get eaten by a bear and almost get struck by lightning, which really hasn't happened much. Okay, so here's just an interesting picture of a tree. Why on earth does this tree grow straight up? You're going to see the same answer for a lot of things. Why does it grow straight up?
That's how it's adapted.
That's how it's adapted to grow best. To survive best, this tree has adapted the principles of growing straight up. This tree is a very good survivor. This one in particular is, well, you can get a picture of how big, well, that's a different tree, sorry. Go back. This one, I don't know if I put a picture of it, but there's a picture of my son standing next to it. It is about 12 feet long, about 12 feet wide. It's a giant sequoia from Yosemite. And this tree is probably 800-900 years old, or maybe more. And so how do we know it's a good tree?
It's still alive.
Still alive. Sadly, a lot of the big trees are getting, because of changes in climate, they die. Like this poor tree. I'm really not looking forward to the time that this tree falls down. It was one of those, not a giant sequoia, but it was a nice giant pine tree at some point in its life. But somebody in 1920 built a dam. And when the person in 1920 built a dam, it formed a lake called Grant Lake. This tree used to be on the side of a hill, a steep hill, but now it's in the lake. And so it killed the tree. So how come this tree died?
Couldn't adapt to the new situation.
Trees don't adapt well to change. Well, some trees don't, especially these big pine trees. These big pine trees, when climate changes, they die because they've been established for so long in the same climate, in the same environment, they're not very flexible and adaptable. What about all these little scrub brushes you see on the side of the lake? What do you think they do? Come on, I promise to get to more interesting things in a minute. This is really fascinating to me, but you don't care. But what do the little plants do? Do they die and grow quickly? Yeah, they adapt. Thank you. You're getting to the point of this. You're really catching on. They adapt. The small plants grow quickly. The large plants grow slowly. Up on the mountain, there's lots of big trees because the environment changes slowly on the mountain. Down at the bottom of the hill, the environment changes very fast. So the plants are small and deal. Okay, here's just some more cool trees. I want you to notice this one right here is why I took a picture of it. What the heck's going on with the trunk of this thing? It's a cool photo. What's going on with the trunk of this tree? Is it nice and straight? No, it's super twisty and entwined, and it's all wrapped up around these rocks. They literally grow and hug and snuggle with the big rocks and grow through them. And what's great about this, it's completely different than the tree that's growing right next to it. The tree that's growing right next to it is going straight up. So even though there's both trees are in the same environment, have they both figured out different ways to adapt to the same environment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So adaptation and this evolution is not necessarily the answer to everything. What we talk about is that, well, wait a second, are these plants learning?
Yes.
Yeah, these plants are learning. One plant learns one way to save and survive in the environment. Another plant learns a different way to survive in the environment. They're both surviving. They both have the same environment, but they have a different set of stimuli that allow them to survive or not survive. This ash tree in the center, that's an aspen technically, that grows all over the place and they grow really fast. So a big fire rolls through, some of the big trees die, the little aspens get cooked, and then they grow again because they grow right from the roots. So how come some trees die and some trees live?
That's just how they
Ability
adapted.
to adapt.
Not every creature adapts the same. Even two animals or two trees of the same species don't adapt the same. They all have subtle differences in an adaptation. And these subtle differences in adaptation are what allow some to survive better than others. This is really important. We'll get there. This is me fishing for my neighbor with a Pabst Blue Ribbon. On the end of my fishing pole. Okay, so, sorry, I think that's funny. Okay, so this little tree shouldn't be here. This is one of those big giant pine trees and it's down by the river. Is it surviving?
Yes.
So far.
Yeah.
So wait a second. I just said that the little trees don't do well. I mean, the big pine trees don't do well down by the river, but this one is. Is this adaptation perfect? Or is it messy?
It's a bit messy. It's not as big as it could.
Well, we don't know how exactly old this one is. And maybe that every so often, these big pine trees, these ponderosa pines, or there's all sorts of different ones that grow up there. Maybe one of these big pine trees tries to grow here every couple hundred years. Maybe, what makes it likely to reproduce? Well, he or she's not going to reproduce because it's missing something. It needs a friend. These pine trees, they cross-pollinate with each other. A lot of pine trees will grow and then the little pine cones at the top are the males and the big pine cones at the bottom are the females. And so the pine cones drop tons of pollen. And as it falls down, it fertilizes its own eggs and then drops the pine cones, which are the females, and they spawn new pine trees. And then the squirrels eat them. But this, I don't know this particular one, but some pine trees only have male pine cones. Some pine trees only have female pine cones. And so this poor pine tree, if there's no other pine tree growing anywhere near it, what's going to happen to its survival, even though it does grow down at the bottom of the hill?
What's the word? To procreate more trees?
It's not going to have sex. It's going to die a poor virgin pine tree and never procreate. And so the idea of this pine tree not having the ability to reproduce is actually what makes it not likely to survive. Okay, so it's a kind of an important thing. Here's another one. A lone pine tree. This is actually a different type of pine tree, but you notice that there's a few other ones around. So is this one more likely to survive because of there's other ones surviving around it?
Yes.
Yeah. And also the reason I took the picture was somebody was chilling by the tree. Hello, I'm a deer.
Yeah.
They're everywhere up there, and they get really annoyed when people just take pictures of them randomly because they're everywhere up there. Okay. And here's just my wife and I on a little hike ever since the pandemic started, my wife and I have been going for walks every night. And we go at least 2 miles every night, which it doesn't take very long because depending on how busy we are, sometimes we do kind of like a forced march. I can't run because of, well, I hate running. Actually, I love running, but my body can't run. So whatever, stupid age. But we're completely hooked and addicted to our 2 mile walks every night. Have we adapted to our walks? Or have we learned to like walking?
Yes.
So thank you for yes for both. Yeah, so maybe we have adapted. Maybe we become addicted to our walks because addiction is adaptation. And we'll start talking about more detailed, specific things. This was my son's summer project. He got money to build a computer. So we did a bunch of research and looked up a whole bunch of different websites and found enough stuff to build a PC. If anybody in here has ever tried to build a PC, it is really fun, but there's like a million different parts that don't work together and only a small set of sections of pieces that actually do work together. So we had to do a lot of learning in order to do this. Now, he hates learning. He hates school. He's 14. He doesn't like anything. He had to get up this morning at 7:30 to do Spanish lesson. And he was pissed off about that the whole time. And so, but all of a sudden, he has a computer and he has a bunch of parts lying there and he has to figure out how to put it together. I've built many computers in my day and I let him do it. And I was watching and he asked for help occasionally, but why let him do it?
He finds it fun.
He was extremely frustrated and had to go lay down for a while halfway through.
He's got to learn how to do things for himself.
He has to, okay, wait a second. So, but what is he learning then?
How to adapt to it.
Well, how to adapt to, is he specifically learning how to build a computer or how to deal with frustration?
Both.
I was just about to say that actually. He's learning how to like deal with, I mean, I'm so bad at explaining, but he's learning to just like take this experience and kind of like reciprocate it to like real life experiences and not just like walk away just because it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's funny because he's always been, if things don't work perfectly, he gets frustrated very quickly. My wife is very much the same way. He got that gene from my wife. Wait a minute. Genetics. My father-in-law is the same way. I'm not. Things don't work perfectly. I'll adapt. I'll figure it out. Okay. And the reason why is because for me growing up, I didn't have anybody modeling being perfect. So all of a sudden we're talking about trees growing by rivers versus not growing by rivers versus this idea that maybe there are some genetic things that are passed on. Do the trees pass their genes on to the next batch of trees?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the trees that survive pass their genes on to the next set of trees, and those trees are more likely to survive, which pass their genes on to the next set of trees down the line, which those genes are more likely to survive. The problem is it takes 50 years, 60 years for the pine trees to reproduce. Much longer than us as humans. We can start reproducing at 14, 15. I would suggest 19, 20, 25 maybe, but whatever. Spam. Somebody wants to sell an extended warranty for our minivan because they're very concerned that our minivan's warranty's expired. And we're in the adage of grip it, hold the steering wheel tight and just let it ride, baby, because it's paid for and anything breaks, how bad can it be? Okay, so sorry. I'm getting a phone call like every hour from that stupid thing. Okay, so if the genes take 50 years to get passed on and we see rapid climate change, what happens to the trees?
They're not going to adapt fast enough.
They're not going to adapt fast enough. In fact, I have a picture of this. Yeah, that was the last picture of that. Oh, just so you can get the finish of it. Installing Windows. And it was really fun going through the process. It took us putting it away and going to sleep and then getting up the next morning. Okay, this is the next one. Who is this?
Is that you?
That is a 16-year-old me. This is in high school, and this is a photo that I found while cleaning out a box that I had actually sent to my grandma because she wanted to know how I was doing, and so I would send her a picture every so often and then write a note on the back of said picture. And then when she passed away, she sent us a box, or her husband sent us a box of all the crap that we had sent her over the years, because her husband was an ass and didn't want any of the crap that she'd been collecting over the years. He was a jerk. Anyway, that was like her third husband. She killed 2 husbands before him, 3 husbands before him. So that last one lasted longer than she did. But anyway, I was laughing at this because I'm like, holy moly, that's like a little baby me. And then there's this guy. I won't find that other picture. I found a picture of an ancient ancestor of mine. My mom's been doing the 23andMe and tracing my family all the way back to Prussia, and it turns out that one of our relatives was some evil dictator in Prussia. And when you look at there's a bust of him at some museum somewhere. It looks just like me. Like, sorry, I'm not going to go back to Estonia where the tyranny of Karl von Wienerfeld lived, because that's Winterfeld, sorry. Anyway, evil dictator, not me. Okay, so I want to put up one more picture up here real quick. And albums, there's a critter album. Where's my critter? There's my critter album. Okay, sorry if you're critter phobic. Coming down here, there it is. Have you ever seen one of these before? Okay, so this is what we call a bark beetle. Have you heard of the bark beetles before? That's what's causing a lot of the forest to die. So I was sitting, this is on the tire of our car. It's about this big. You know, this is like that's one of the treads on the car. And so you can see it's about the same size as the width of a tread on a car. This is the thing that is killing all the pine trees up in the Sierras. You hear about the bark beetles and the bark beetle invasions. This is one particular type of bark beetle. So the trees have a natural defense for this. These bark beetles have been around forever. It's no big deal. but the trees usually produce this lots of gooey sap. If anybody's ever had a little white fluffy dog like mine, not my fluffy dog, they will step in this tar by the base of trees and get it stuck all over themselves and then sit and hold their paws up going, help me, and you have to wash it out with lots of dish soap and it's a pain in the ass. Sorry, not from personal experience at all. So the sap keeps the bark beetles from burrowing in because the bark beetle digs a hole, the sap fills up the hole, the bark beetle suffocates and dies and can't eat the tree. If there's a drought, the tree can't produce the sap. If the tree can't produce the sap, the bark beetle gets in and can kill the tree. And so the question is that if the environment changes, these guys have always been there, now win, and the trees lose. But what happens once we get back to a normal cycle of water again in a couple thousand years? Once humans have been scrubbed off the planet.
The trees can start producing again.
Yeah, there will be a tree, and there will be another tree, and they will start 50 years later, they will have a third tree. And eventually, if the water changes, or maybe that poor little tree that was growing down at the bottom of the mountain now has enough water. And so maybe all of a sudden, all the ponderosa pines will move from the top of the mountains where the bark beetles have wiped them out to the bottom of the mountains where the bark beetles aren't. And in thousands of years, we can see this change. Okay, let's see. Here's a brook trout. Okay, that's actually from Rush Creek. Isn't it pretty? Okay, sorry, what's that? So there's another bark beetle up here that I took a picture of. My daughter walks out and goes, Dad, there's a chicken by the pool.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, moving on.
But just looking chicken.
It's a nice looking chicken. Okay, I don't have a picture of the other bark beetle. Wait, do I? I found a really cool one that's not an invasive bark beetle. But anyway, I spend too much time taking pictures of flowers and stuff because I think it's cool. Okay, so now. So did my son change his DNA? Whoa, did he change his DNA?
no.
No. What did he do?
He adapted to his situation.
So when we talk about the term of adaptation, we talk about adjusting the nature. It's adjusting your nature. Do you adapt to being out in the sun?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, some of us adapt better than others to being out in the sun. There's a poor student in my stats course last semester, trying to remember her name. She has red hair and very, very pale skin. And Jessie has red hair and pale skin right now, but I think it's because she doesn't go outside.
Also, I don't know what's going on with like my lighting, but it's overexposing everything.
So you're not
I
nearly
swear I'm not this pale.
Okay.
I promise. I do go outside.
Okay, just checking, you know, but okay. So, but at this, so like I'm very tan right now because I spend a lot of time outside. I much prefer being outside than inside, even though yesterday it got over 90 in here. I'd so much rather be out here when it's warm than inside with the air conditioning on. It's much nicer for me in my garage. There's no mosquitoes today, so I'm happy. But by going outside and constantly getting tan, I'm less likely to get sunburned. And that is adaptation. That is changing my basic nature. What happens in the wintertime when I'm not outside as much? Pretty easy.
You're gonna sunburn easier.
Yeah, I get sunburn easier. And that's when if you're anybody here who ever's gone skiing or have ever been out in the snow, you really have to apply a lot of sunblock on your face, unless you have some sort of full face covering. And the reason is I went out skiing, I completely forgot about putting sunblock, and I had summer or winter skin. My face just got completely sunburned. I had blisters all along my chin and my cheeks right there. because it was just, I just got fried. But I have the, what is it? Sunbum clear zinc oxide. And I put that all over my face when I go out because I don't want to get any older than I have to be. Okay, so how much can we change our nature? Can you just rewrite your genetics?
No.
Wouldn't it be cool? Hey, I've got a lot of anxiety. Let me just rewrite the code in there and hey, I don't have any anxiety. But if you can't change your nature, if you can't adapt physically, you can change your what?
Mentality?
What the hell does that mean? Sorry. We're in a behaviorism class. In cognitive psych, we can talk about changing your cognitive focus and changing your attention and changing the memories that you have and focusing differently on the memories. That doesn't exist in this class. It's real, but the only thing that we can talk about in this class is behavior. So Alice and I were talking before class and she goes, well, I really like to be busy. I like to be busy too. I'm so much more productive when I have a lot of things to do. On my birthday, we were super busy all week. And then on my birthday, I had an entire day to do nothing because we couldn't have a party, couldn't do anything. So I'm like, well, so I literally sat around all day and didn't do anything. I got nothing done. Every time I started to do something, I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. And in fact, I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, well, this is stupid. I haven't done crap all day. I've been playing on my phone. I have to go charge my phone now. And it's one of those things like, if you're busy, it's wonderful because you only have a certain amount of time to do something. So you make sure it's done during that particular time that you have to do. That's one of the reasons why I'm actually having the Zoom classes. I mean, you could read the book and you could get as much out of it as you can and just take a test and move on. But by doing something, behavior, that's how you learn. And that's what it gives you something to do. So now, how do we know? Okay, so let me just, I just want to go back through this idea of nature. How does adaptation help an individual? How does adaptation help an individual?
Well, you need to adapt to survive and to like.
But so who does that help? Who does your survival help?
Future generations.
Yeah. So your survival benefits the future you. Your adaptations and the way that you adapt to the world benefit your offspring. Or no, not necessarily offspring, because if you choose not to reproduce in your life and choose not to have offspring, does your future self still benefit other humans?
Yes.
Yes, unless you're some sort of crazy serial killer, but then you inspire a whole Netflix series and give a bunch of people jobs. I guarantee the San Francisco one will have a TV show about it soon. If anybody's been following that, it's the Golden
State Killer.
Yeah, it's seriously creepy.
They caught him through 23andMe, dude.
I know,
It's
and it's
insane.
Like it gets the more you read about that. Dr. Salazar, who's fabulous other psych instructor on campus, she's gotten me hooked on these true crime podcasts.
Well, I need to talk to her about it then.
Yeah, talk to her about it, because there's some really cool podcasts that talk about like just taking apart this real crimes and like real, and then the murder mysteries. It's like reading a murder mystery, but it's like real stuff, and how they unpack the data and everything, and it's really neat. Anyway, so but even the future self, even you benefit the people around you. And if you adapt and become more successful, the people around you become more successful. If you don't adapt and are not becoming successful, it generally weighs on the people around you. That's a lot of pressure. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to write this word up here. So in this particular class, we believe in evolution. And it's the reason why we believe in evolution is because it is based on science. Now, how come other classes talk about things that are different than evolution? You take a religious studies class, they talk about something that is different than evolution.
Because it's like different perspectives.
Different perspectives. And I'm going to say a scientific approach isn't always the best answer for personal things. A lot of times we can say what Jesse said is what you figure things out by thinking, not by science. We can't say that in this class because it doesn't exist, but in reality, you figure things out by thinking. And so sometimes having a more spiritual or more thoughtful approach to something is a better way to solve problems than a scientific approach. I hate to be a scientist saying that, but like when you have a significant other pass away, science isn't going to help you. So, but trying to process and deal with it is a much more emotional thing that will help you. And yes, we can go through the 17 stages of grieving, and then you can see which one you're at, know which one you're going to be next, and then go into the sweatpants phase and whatever. Okay. If you're a Friends fan, that's funny. Otherwise, just ignore it. Okay. But, okay, so evolution is about the future you. It is the science of figuring out what you do to procreate. How to pass on your genes the most effective way, how to adjust to nature so that you survive. And yes, we talk about through trees, but you can talk about it through people too as well. Okay. Whew. So the next thing, this is great. Can someone tell me what a behavior is?
Isn't it something that you do based on like a feeling or a belief?
Ah. So you just said the cause of behavior. So we'll talk about causes of behavior in a few minutes, but before we can talk about a cause of a behavior, we have to know what a behavior is.
Like something that you can observe.
Okay, so number one, it's observable. So when something is observable, what can you do with it?
Study it.
Measure it. What else did someone say?
Study.
Yeah, you can measure it and then you can study it. The way you study anything is through a measurement. So what we talk about is in order for something to be a behavior, it has to be measurable. Okay, so I saw this pop up on the thing here. I need to get a mouse. My son has an extra mouse. Ha, I will have a mouse for this shortly. Okay. Let's go back to here. I don't want there. Oh, 12 baby birthing videos. Those are awesome. I feel bad for the developmental class that had to watch those. It's my daughter hitting a volleyball. Okay, let's see. Lagging time. Okay, so early in sequestration, volleyball is canceled. So I made this little board where she can whack the volleyball into. I saw the plans online. I said, cool. I went out and bought a piece of plywood and some 2x4s, and we have this thing in our backyard where she can hit the volleyball into. And we set it at the right angle so it pops it back up for her, and then she sets it, and hits it again. And it's actually really annoying because it's loud, but it's actually pretty cool. So how would we describe her success, of her being successful? How would we know that she is successful? Oh, my daughter found more bacon. Whew. It's okay with the world right now. I thought you knew that was in there. Oh. Okay. So yesterday she goes, Dad, there's no bacon. I'm like, there's a package in there. No, it's empty. I'm like, oh, well, she just found the other package that was in there. Very exciting. Okay, so how do I know she's successful? Let's go back.
Would it be by the amount that she continues to go further with her sets if she goes further than she did before?
So I can count the frequency. So I can count the number of. Okay, so if she counts, the first time she does, I can do 7, maybe 6. But if she can do 10, what happens if she does 12 the next time? What can you say?
Getting better.
It's getting better. And so all of a sudden, what I can say she's learning is because I can measure a change in frequency. What's another way to measure whether she's successful or not?
She doesn't miss the ball.
Okay, so that's right. I was about to do this again. So we can measure errors. So I can count error rates, right? So if you make a mistake, we count that as a 1. And then if you make 10 mistakes the first time, and then we do, then we count the next time you do 8 mistakes, we can say she is getting better because we count the number of mistakes. We count the number of successes, we count the number of mistakes. What else would be a measurement of her ability to do this?
Would time be a measurement?
Yeah. Duration. We can measure the duration of something, how long she goes about doing it. So if she, like one of the things about reading, how do we know whether you can read well?
How fast you can read without making errors?
Yeah, so we use the word fluency. Which is duration and errors. So we take these two particular things, we take these two measurements of duration and errors, and we measure the amount of errors she makes over a period of time. As you become what we call fluent, you make less errors over time. So what we do is in this class, and this is the way we want to start to focus on everything in this class, is we have to focus on how are you going to measure that behavior. Before we can do anything, before we can learn to adapt, before we can change, before we can even think about causes, because causes are way down the pipe, we have to figure out ways in order to measure the environment. Now, what were we talking about with the trees? What were we measuring in the environment with the trees? What was the cause here? What's the cause in the change of the trees?
Evolution.
Well, but evolution is the process of change based on your environment. So the cause of you having to adapt is your environment. How come the damn rats aren't getting caught in the traps anymore?
Adapting to their environment.
They're adapting to their environment. And in order to understand why the rats aren't getting trapped, you have to understand the rat's environment. In order to understand why the trees are growing or not growing, you have to understand the tree's environment. Kim Dudzik is a biology professor, and if anyone has ever had her before, she was our academic senate president for a couple of years, so she hasn't been in the classroom. But she was off this arpeggio, which is like a underwater mountain, and she was studying hammerhead sharks. And this is back when she was in graduate school. And she is snorkeling and filming and making notes with these little grease pencils on tablets of what these sharks are doing. And she's busy writing notes down, watching these sharks. And she looks up and there is a 15-foot hammerhead shark sitting right nose to nose with her. So that's where you pee in your wetsuit. But so she, because she studies in the environment, she is a biologist, she goes, I am not food. She says this in her head. So if you're faced with a shark, by a shark, what does the shark's food typically do when it sees a giant shark?
Freak out.
Panic.
It panics and tries to swim away really quickly. What's the best way to get bit by a shark?
Swimming away really quickly.
Looking like food. But what's interesting is the sharks will sit and swim next to all these other fish and not take bites out of them. Because
Fish aren't running away.
those fish that are swimming by aren't food. So how does the shark know the difference between food and not food?
Behavior.
The way that the animal behaves. And that's why all last semester during my cognitive class, I had a fishing lure hanging up in here. I don't know where the fishing lure is at this point, but it's this relatively phallic shaped shiny metal object that flishes and flashes in the water. And it doesn't look like anything to us, but to other fish, it says food. And so what's funny is Kim said, yeah, I just kind of floated there and looked at the shark. The shark eventually got bored looking at me and swam away because she did not demonstrate food behavior. So the organism, the shark is just operating on its environment. When something looks like food, what does it do?
Tries to eat it.
It treats it like food. I'm a bad thing like that. I'm kind of a shark when I walk around the house. I look at something. I'm terrible with leftovers. Hey, there's my daughter again. Your laundry's in the dryer. Okay. Whenever my kids will even attest to this, I tend to eat old stuff in the fridge. Gross is what she says. And the reason is I hate wasting stuff. And like this morning for breakfast, I had some old turkey burgers that everybody said were disgusting. I ate them. Because to me, waste is food. So I guess I'm much more like a scavenger than an actual hunter. Oh well. But so the idea that understanding the environment, does that help you change your behavior?
Yes.
So what's the cause of our behavior then? What's the cause of our behavior?
Like our environment?
My daughter killed crickets, by the way. What's your environment?
The people around us.
Well, sadly, anybody know where most of your environment comes from? That says internal.
Oh, I thought it said internet.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, we could talk about the internet with that because it's great. I have a little feed on my phone, right? So if I open up my phone and I go to the feed on the side here, okay? So the stories I get, Jeremy Clarkson shows up, Amazon creating new jobs near San Diego, fly fishing, something about cars, something about technology. Ooh, Lemon Grove teen missing since July 31st and it's got the same color hair as you, Jesse. Are you missing? Okay.
I don't think so. I might be.
Just checking. Inside the moon, living inside the moon. Why would all this crap show up on my Google feed?
Based off
Well, there's-
your interests.
It takes stuff that I Google and uses an algorithm to provide an environment that I am more likely to click on. There's a lot of bicycle stuff. I've been looking at a bunch of planetary stuff lately. So all of a sudden a bunch of NASA stuff shows up on there. We were having a big discussion about, we put a ceiling fan on our deck outside and it's the best invention in the world. We've been talking about it for like 10 years and we finally actually put it there and it's amazing. You can sit outside and the flies don't bug you because the ceiling fan keeps them away. Brilliant. Anyway, last year we couldn't sit outside because the flies were so bad. The flies are just as bad this year, but they don't fly near us because they don't like the ceiling fan. Does anybody ever wonder why in the grocery store when you walk in, there's that big sheet of air that blows through? That keeps the flies out. Now you know. Okay, anyway, I had to ask why it's there. Oh, it keeps the flies out. And then it dawned on me, that's why we don't have any flies under the ceiling fan. Wow. All you have to do is change the environment. Or kill them all. Kill. No, that's us. Never mind. Sorry. Okay, so what is the cause of behavior? Crickets. This is deep stuff, man. Okay, so yourself is the cause of your behavior. Now, the problem with this is that we can't study the self in this class until we properly define it by behavioral terms. So I'm going to put up another word here, and this word's going to show up a lot in our environment. It's called your Umwelt. Your Umwelt. So you are a product of your Umwelt. You are a product of the sensory world around you. So if I take off my glasses, wink, what happens to my Umwelt?
It changes.
How does it change?
Your view, like your perception's different since your glasses were helping you see clearly.
My glasses help me see details. So I have my eyeballs lasered. And when I have my eyeballs lasered, I set them so I can see things that are far away. I can see trees and birds and cats and rats. Anyway, I can see lots of things far away very easily. I can ride my bike much better than I could before because I don't have to wear contacts. I can catch a ball much better than I ever could before, which to me is remarkable because I was always terrible at catching things and now I can catch things. Okay. But I can't see up close anymore. Like when I have to use my phone, I need my glasses and I have my font like zoomed giant, like on my text messages. Okay, so giant font on text messages so I can see it. There's still two bigger that I can get, but I'm not going to do it yet. Okay, so how did I adjust my Umwelt? How did I adjust my eyeballs so that I could navigate the world without glasses? Has anybody else here had their eyeballs lasered?
No.
Nobody? Oh. If you have to wear glasses, not to point at Michelle because she's actually wearing glasses, but it's amazing how the world looks without glasses on. And I've worn glasses pretty much my whole life. Ever since I was 13, 12, I got glasses and I never wore them until I got to college. I kept them in my saxophone case. so I could read my music. And hence that picture of me with my glasses on was one of the very few pictures of me with my glasses on. That's because they were in my saxophone case. Up until my sophomore year at State, I never wore them. Only when I had to play my music, so I could see the dots on the page. But what's interesting is now that I have no glasses, my umvelt is extremely expanded. I'm actually a better athlete now than I was when I was younger because I can see better. So does your umvelt affect your behavior?
Yes.
Yeah, so your umvelt affects the way that your behavior. So how do we describe your environment? How do you describe your environment? This is really kind of complicated. Do you know what your environment really is? This is
Is
philosophy.
it how you perceive it?
It's how you perceive the environment is what the environment is. It's not actually what the environment is that tells you what it is. So there's people who will believe themselves, they're called mentalists. Mentalists believe that the world only exists in our consciousness, and they like things like the Matrix and alternate realities in Marvel Universe, where you create the world that you live in, and Doctor Strange and all that nonsense. The physical folks, the behaviorists, the only thing that exists in your environment are things that cause you to change your behavior. So here's a really important word for you. Okay, what time is it? Okay, we're almost there. So when I put this little thing up on Canvas to do a little discussion on, we're going to have you watch a little video and have you identify what's called a stimulus event. A stimulus event is a change. In your environment. A stimulus event is a change in your environment. So for the trees, the stimulus events are very slow. The environment changes subtly, and the organism reacts to the stimulus event in a very slow, generational way. For humans, though, there's tons of stimulus events. Could you hear that noise just a second ago?
No.
Okay, so I don't know if it got picked up on the mic. It's in my umvelt, I can hear it. There's a clunk followed by a hum. That's our air conditioning turning on. So when I hear that stimulus event, I cringe and I look down at my phone and try to adjust the thermostat so it doesn't quite go off yet. It's not even 10 o'clock yet. It is after 10:30. Yesterday, it was running when we got up in the morning. It was much hotter than it is now. But as soon as my little thermometer back there gets over 80, inside the house gets close to 80. And so the thermostat set at 78 right now. So it's 78 degrees in the house right now. So that click and that thunk to me a stimulus event?
Yes.
Yes. If you didn't hear it, is it a stimulus event?
No.
No, because remember, this is focused on the self. It's focused on the organism itself, not absolute. So you can't say that something is a stimulus event without taking the perspective of the organism itself. This is a really important aspect for this entire semester because stimulus events are different depending on different people. I'm just going to write a little fun word under here. I'll put it in Magic Sparkles, if I can get to Magic Sparkles. It's a word we call trigger. Trigger has been colloquialized in our society now because of YouTubers. But what is a trigger?
A stimulus event.
It's a stimulus event. And it's a stimulus event that tells you to feel a certain way. And so there's all sorts of different names for these, but this is just, I put this up here because it's like the word crazy. It's one of those things that people use all the time, but don't necessarily know what it means. But when we're going to start talking about these stimulus events, and there's tons of stimulus events in the world. If like one of the easiest stimulus events that you can do, and it'd be really fun for us to do an experiment with this, is to actually take pictures of ourselves smiling or not smiling behind masks. And then we present them to my introduction to psych students, and they have to rate what is the probability of the person's having a real smile or a fake smile. And we want to see, are mask smiles a real stimulus event? What would we have to do to test if these mask smiles are real stimulus events or not? What do we have to measure? Almost done.
Is it like in your eyes?
Smize? Sorry.
Your eyes.
Yeah, I know, smize. It's what you smile with your eyes, you smize.
Yeah.
But like, I'm always smiling, so it's really too easy for me. I make a point at smiling at everybody in the grocery store. Okay? I'm not quite hi with a fake smile. I generally am smiling. Like Sam just gave a genuine, real smile. It wasn't a giant, full face, wrinkle face smile. It was just a gentle, you can just see that there's a positivity about Sam's face right there. Okay? And that's why when you smile at someone, they give you the just nothing back. Awesome. But what's nice is that by giving out this smiles, how do we know it makes a difference? Can the person actually determine whether you're smiling or not with the mask on?
Is it how they perceive it?
It's their response. You're stupid. Sorry, that's my son. It's my way I talk to him in the morning. And he usually yells, stinky. Oh, he's finding high fructose corn syrup in the fridge. Well done, sir.
We need more in the fridge. Right?
This is the boy. Wait. I'm still bigger than him. Okay.
I need more.
I need more. We'll put it in after class. Okay. I only can do that for about another week or two more because he's going to be bigger and stronger than me in about a week, so it's not good. Okay. So the answer to this, basically, before I get distracted by my wonderful boy, is response events. Response events are behaviors. How do we know a stimulus event exists?
If someone responds to it?
There is a response event associated with it. So this whole semester, we are going to be taking this apart, and we're going to show you all these different stimulus events, and hopefully you will start to discover some stimulus events within yourself that you might not be aware of. And we won't do anything creepy therapy-wise because sadly, guess what therapy is?
Is it a trigger?
Is unpacking those stimulus events. Because what's interesting is once a stimulus event becomes a, quote, trigger, unquote, we use the word classical conditioning in this class, but once it becomes a conditioned response, it produces the response event before you're conscious of the stimulus event. So you're already responding before you're conscious of the stimulus event. And if you're already responding, there's no way to change your response because it's already happened. And so what we're going to do is over the course of the semester, we're going to, next class, we're going to show you how to study learning, how to be a behaviorist. And I'd like to be able to train somebody to do something. I'm not exactly sure what yet, but we'll train somebody to do something next class on Monday. Wait, today's Wednesday? Yeah, on Monday. And then try to diagram what are the stimulus events, what are the response events, and what are the conditions that are being applied to the stimulus event to produce the response event. This is really kind of fun stuff. I think it's fun because then you start to look at the world slightly differently. You start to find these smooths around the world. These little rabbit holes, these little critter holes that we all have. And the thing that we got to remember about this, and I'm almost done. You are your Umwelt. You are your sensory experiences around you. Because the sensory experiences around you create your behavior. Your behavior operates on this Umwelt. Behavior does not occur unless there is sensory experience. So why would somebody want to numb themselves? Why would someone love opiates or meth?
So they don't have to feel.
So that they can predict their response events. So if you know what the response event is going to be to a particular stimulus event, that reduces the likelihood of you having to deal with the Umwelt around you. And it's a small little thing, but it's a big problem in our society. It's like, that's why I think people need to learn to enjoy discomfort. I think they should learn to enjoy discomfort. Okay.